I love an adventure that makes me drop my anchor in a beautiful waterway and then wander through some marshes following buckets on trees to be able to climb up through a sandy track for 2.5 kilometres to come. And so we're here at Bustard Head Lighthouse, and I'm sitting here with the caretakers, Rob and Robyn. Welcome. How long have you been up here for?
We've been here this time almost 4 weeks. We leave on Wednesday.
You talked about a wonderful place to be, and this indeed is wonderful to be.
It's an adventure, but it's also a privilege. Not everybody gets to experience a place like this, and this is really a little bit of paradise. It's so beautiful and so peaceful, serene.
As well as the privilege, or because of the privilege, we feel extra caring about the environment here. We'll go to the ends of the earth to remove weeds and prickly pears and things. We just care. It's extra special.
How does a couple from Tweed Heads end up being caretakers at Bustard Head Lighthouse?
Essentially by listening to the ABC. About 3 to 4 years ago, we saw a segment on ABC TV, an interview with Stuart Buchanan about the Bustard Head Lighthouse restoration, and we tracked him down and said we were interested, and he said, well, yeah, I can take your name, but we rarely get an opening. But anyhow, 2.5 years later, after going through some hoops of qualifying, Stuart rang and said, would you be available on such and such a date 6 months hence? We said yes.
So we've always had a fascination with lighthouses, the romance, the history.
When you got that call from Stuart, had you been to Bustard Head Lighthouse before?
No, we hadn't.
Never.
So when you climbed up those stairs that lead up climbed up that sandy walkway, what did you think?
There were a lot of things about it that weren't a surprise, but the impact was huge. It's just such a magnificent site here and so well kept.
My experience was the first thing I saw from the lighthouse was the sky and the red bulb on top.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first thing I saw.
Yeah.
My heart jumped.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's why I always remember it.
Yeah.
Mm.
There's something special about lighthouses, isn't there? It's sort of symbolic of man's determination not to be beaten. But that man's been determined to do that and not be overcome so that they can warn the people, the sailors going past, of the dangers that are out there. There are rocks out there that so many ships foundered on, and that's why they felt they needed a lighthouse.
It was the first one built in the new colony of Queensland. Cape Morton is actually the oldest lighthouse in Queensland.
It was built before Queensland was separated from New South Wales.
And then over the years it went into disrepair.
When the lighthouse became automated, they no longer needed lightkeepers here, and so they just fenced off the lighthouse and left it. And in the next 16 years, vandals came and vandalised everything here. And
the government really didn't want to have anything to do with it. It wiped its hands originally, didn't it?
Well, they would have been happy to bulldoze the cottages down, really, because they served no purpose anymore for them. But they're part of the history. They've so many stories attached. It's now an historical site.
And a heritage site.
A heritage site, yes. And so now it is preserved for history, and we've got to look after our history.
It's one of those funny things in hindsight. We don't really know what we've missed out on until it's all gone.
No. And in Queensland, we haven't got a lot of history preserved.
So much was built in timber in the old days in Queensland, and it's demolished with white ants or fires. Lighthouses represent probably the oldest structures around the state.
Thanks to ABC Wide Bay, it's awesome that we can be here. But as we sit here and we look out, and we're looking at a gorgeously white lighthouse, the sun reflecting through with the Australian flag flying proudly. It's actually a story about people as well, isn't it? It's more than just a lighthouse.
A huge story of people, yes. And people lived here and had families here, and they had to be so resourceful. They didn't have a shop down at the corner. They didn't have a telephone. They didn't have television. They had to grow their own vegetables. They had to have cattle and chickens and catch fish, of course.
And water. Where do they get water from?
Down the front there was a spring, I believe.
Was
down
down there?
that way somewhere.
Once a month, if they were lucky, the supply ship came in down to Pancake Creek, and they would offload into little boats and bring it ashore, and then the horse and cart would bring it up. And it would take them 3 days sometimes to bring supplies up. But there were some sad stories, tragedies that happened. One story that constantly pops up in my mind was a little girl of 2 who was very badly burnt. She died after 2 days. I mean, what could they do? They couldn't airlift her off. She just had to die in agony, poor little thing, and she's buried down in the cemetery down there. But as well, bringing it forward into modern times, we get so many interesting people here who, for one reason or another, are fascinated by lighthouses, just the beautiful environment here.
The first lightkeeper here stayed for 34 years. The head lightkeeper was here for 34 years. One wonders how he fitted into the mainland community after that. The museum has become a magnet for people who hear about it or actually see it and know someone who's got some connection here.
I'm here, I've had the privilege of being here with Rob and Robyn Baines, and we're at Bustard Head Lighthouse, and for ABC Wide Bay, just talking about its history and talking about what it means to be a lighthouse keeper out here. The people are here, you do the tours, they go home, and you're sitting on this lovely headland by yourself at night.
It's beautiful. It's peaceful. There's hardly a sound. You can almost not even hear the ocean. It's so quiet.
We've just been talking about photography and you doing some night photography. I'm guessing this would be a beautiful way. You have an interest in photography.
Yes, and I'm just trying to improve, get it right.
You must see lovely birds and other things that come.
Lots and lots of
We
butterflies.
had flocks of butterflies. Beautiful. But the kangaroos, they're our constant companions. We love the kangaroos.
You finish next Wednesday.
Yes.
And you go home.
The feeling when we leave is that was even better than the first time. We have more confidence, more comfort, and warmth that comes through familiarity. We have the confidence this time. As we leave, we'll be saying that was another great episode in our lives. There's no due back. It's we will be asking if we can get another stint about the same time next year.